Hello and welcome to Midday Prayer bonus content. Today we're going to be talking through some of Luke chapter 19, verses 11 through 27, talking through Hebrews 11 and 12, and questions 26 through 28 of the Heidelberg Catechism. So let's get to it. If you did not see the Midday Prayer video, I would suggest you go back and see that, or at least read over these texts. So the parable of the 10 pounds. This one is an interesting one. We've heard it before, but we usually haven't heard this version. Luke has some interesting little things. First of all, it's not 3 slaves, it's 10. And each of them have 1 talent that they're given. And the reason that the person is going to be gone, the property owner, is he's going to a nobleman. He goes to a distant country to get royal power. And so there's kind of this subplot that's going on, almost as if it's a TV show, right? There's the primary plot of kind of what's going on, but then you also have a subplot of what's going on with some of the other characters. The subplot for this one is he's going to go and get royal power. He's seeking royal power. But there are people in his kingdom and his, under his control who don't like him. And so they send a delegation to the king and say, we don't like this guy, right? And we'll see what happens with them. The primary plot is that he gives 10 talents to 10 servants and has them do with them what they will, right? He says, do business with these until I come back. So eventually he comes back and he's been given this royal power. The king, the distant king, does give him what he is seeking after. He apparently doesn't listen to the delegation sent by the citizens of that country. He comes back and he calls before him those who he has given talents to, or pounds to. And the first one comes up and he says, I've invested the money, right? The money that you gave me. And here, instead of the 1 pound that you gave me, here are 10 pounds. That's a substantial, he's been doing some real dealing. He's put in, he's gotten out 1,000%, right? Made 10 times as much. Really good investment, right? He's doing really good with this money that has been entrusted to him. And so the king now says, great, you have done really well. You now are manager of these 10 cities, slave. You were my slave. Now you're a manager of these 10 cities. You're going to oversee them and make sure that they do well. Because you were trusted with a little bit of something and you did really well with it. And so I'm going to give you many things. Very similar to what we heard before, right? The dishonest manager. He says the same thing. Those who are trusted, if you do well with a very little thing, you will be trusted with more things. Same thing with, there's another one that comes back with 5. We don't know what happens to all the others, but we do know what happens to one of them. And he says, here is your pound back. And he says this, I wrapped it up in a piece of cloth, for I was afraid of you because you are a harsh man. You take what you did not deposit and reap what you did not sow. Now, we have no idea if this is actually true about this man, right? But we might suspect that this slave was a part, or at least in mind with those who were sent off to the kingdom to say that we don't want this person over us. He's got this image of his master that is not good. And his master says, well, fine, I will base your judgment on the image that you had of me. You think that I'm this harsh taskmaster that reaps where I don't sow, basically steals? Fine. You wicked slave. You knew that I was a harsh man, did you? Taking where I did not deposit and reaping where I did not sow. Why didn't you at least put the money in a bank and I'd get investment off of it? It wouldn't be 5 times, it wouldn't be 10 times, but maybe it'd be twice as much, maybe it'd be half as much. I'd make money, but you just wrapped it in a cloth and you didn't do anything with it. So take it away from him and give it to the man with 10 pounds. And the next element is parenthetical. It's in parentheses. I'm not sure if it's the crowd in the parable that say, hey, wait a second, he had 10 pounds, or it's Jesus's crowd as they're hearing the story. Hey, wait a second, he has 10 pounds. And Jesus says, yes, he does. To those who have, more will be given. To those who have shown themselves faithful in what they have, more responsibilities, more talents, more opportunities will be given. But those who have little and don't use it, even what they do have is going to be taken away. It's harsh words, right? And we've heard sermons about, especially the talents, right? God has given you all sorts of gifts and abilities, opportunities, money, time. The list goes on. All the resources that we have. I talked in Bible study the other day about we have smartphones, most of us. You may well be watching on your smartphone right now. Do you realize that you probably heard this from me before? But if not, it's worth saying again. The entire Apollo 11 program that sent men to the moon and brought them back, all of their computing power for Apollo 11 was far less than what you carry in your pocket. But what do we do with it? Right? We have such amazing opportunities. We have such amazing resources in the world that we live in right now. Things, technology, access to information that our forefathers and mothers couldn't even imagine. What are we doing with it? Do we just use Facebook for looking at funny cat pictures? We use it to start arguments because we have this boldness about how we speak on social media, but do we also have a boldness about how we speak about God? Is it that same boldness? Are we more bold about speaking the things of God than we are, arguing with people who are stupid? What are we doing with what we have been given? Because the fact is, if we're good with what we have been given, God will give us more. If we show ourselves to be faithful in small things, he will give us big things. And sometimes that's good for us, and sometimes it's bad, we think, because sometimes those things are more challenges and more troubles. But it's because he is working in us. Again, we're building into this, or we've got today with all of these readings this idea of kind of the parent who wants us to succeed, and so gives us challenges. Here, do this. See if you can overcome it. Great, you overcame it. Let me give you some more. Why? Because he wants us to be holy. He wants to be his children. He wants us to be transformed into his image. So how are you using the resources that you have? Really, just take stock of it. And then we have the conclusion of that second storyline, the secondary storyline. After he deals with his servants, he then says, all right, bring me those people who said they don't want me to be rulers over them. I will be happy to oblige. Kill them in my presence. Now that sounds really harsh to us, right? But in a way, it's giving us an image of, some people ask about how God could, if God is truly loving, how could he condemn people to eternal damnation? Well, he doesn't. they condemn themselves. If someone shows through their entire life that they don't want to have anything to do with God, they definitely don't want a relationship with God, he's not going to force himself on others. And so he puts them outside his presence. Fine. I'm not going to roll over you, but you're going to have to deal with the consequences of that. So it's not a cheery parable. It's one that gets to us, right? So let's do something about it, right? And Hebrews, it's talking about the same thing, right? You have faith. Do something with it. Do something, right? That's what James is all about. Do something. Hebrews goes through this litany of all of these people, and he's calling to attention all the great things they did by faith, but also that all of these people, all of these patriarchs that the Hebrews have held up for years and years and years, none of them saw what they were actually waiting for. None of them saw the Christ, though they were waiting for him. None of them actually saw that new Jerusalem, which neither we have not seen either. All of us are going towards this goal, this thing that we're looking for that we haven't actually seen, but we're going for it with hope. We're waiting for something that is not seen. So we go on and we persevere. We keep running the race. And in fact, 12, it really gets going where he says, after listing all of these, the faith of all of these people, right? And I'm not going to go through all these stories. If you don't know these stories, read the Old Testament. It's really good. Wonderful stories about faith and perseverance and real people who struggle, right? All of these people struggled, and all of these people overcame. All of these people went on to live lives of faith. And we too, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, throw off all the things that weigh us down, the sin, ourselves. Like I said yesterday, we get in our own way. Get rid of all that stuff and run with perseverance the race that has been set out for you. And yes, it's going to be tough. Yes, there are going to be times where you're going to run through and you're going to be barefoot on glass, and it's going to really not be pleasant. And you're going to be punished. You're going to run through the mud, and you're going to run through, it's not going to be a fun, just going with this metaphor of the race, it's not going to be fun all the time. It's not a fun run. It is going to be grueling. This is a 5K we're talking about. Or a 10K if you think a 5K is easy. It is something that is going to be difficult, but there's a reason that it's difficult, and why he takes this left turn into, well, you know what? Parents punish their children. Why? Because they want them to be good, and they want them to grow, and they want them to be good people and to make good decisions. God does that to you. If we do that to our children, of course God's going to do that to us. We raise our children for a little bit of time. We try to raise them in the way that they should be. Right? We ourselves were raised and punished it for a certain amount of time, and then our parents had to kind of let us go. God does the same thing, and yet he continually is at work in us to help us to grow and to learn and to become holy. Not happy necessarily, though we will be happy if we're holy. But the goal is not for us to be comfortable. It's not for us to be, wealthy necessarily. It's not for all the things that we in our flesh want. The goal for God for us, God's goal for us is that we be holy. And that's why he punishes us. In fact, the fact that we are punished shows that God loves us. If we're not punished, guess what? We're illegitimate children. In other words, we're bastards. We're pitiable. If we're not being punished by God, that means that we're not really his children. He's not working in us to grow and to be nurtured. And so James says, when troubles come, count it all as joy, because God is doing this work in you to make you holy. If he's not doing that work in you, then we of all people are most pitiable. Right? Don't reject God's grace. He lifts up a couple of examples of those who rejected God's grace. Keep going. Keep going. Because God is doing something amazing in your life, in our lives, in the life of the cosmos. He's doing something that's beyond our understanding. The earth and the heavens will shake because of what he is doing. Right? And that leads us right into Heidelberg, right? God created the world, and God is continuing to create the world. Creation and providence. Providence tends to be a reformed distinctive. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But in one of the earlier layouts for Calvin's Institutes, providence comes immediately after creation. Because it's exactly what Heidelberg is talking about. God created the world, created everything that you've ever known, everything you have never known. Everything in all of existence, including existence itself, has been created by God. Everything. Time and space. The other side of the universe or the multiverse that you will never, ever, 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 ever see in this world. All of that's been created by God, and God continues to be at work. Why? For his good pleasure to work. Think about this, that the almighty and the ever-present power of God, whereby he still upholds, as it were by his own hand, heaven and earth together with all creatures, and rules in such a way that leaves and grass, rain and drought, fruitful and unfruitful years, food and drink, health and sickness, richness and poverty, and everything else come to us not by chance, but by his fatherly hand. Everything that has happened to us ever, that does happen to us and will happen to us, is because God, our Father, wants it to happen for us, to draw us to himself. When we go through hard times, it is because God wants to refine us in his fire. When we have blessings, it's because God wants us to use those blessings and to multiply them. Whatever God has put in your path is for you to be the best person that you can possibly be. So do it. Run the race that's set before you. Don't reject it. Don't have the rebellion like those who stood at the very border of the promised land and said, no, I don't want to do that. Take hold. Do it. I was going to mention something else that we're going to talk about this evening with James, right? The end of James says this, that Elijah was just a man. He did all of these amazing things of faith, and all the others did all these amazing things of faith. They're people. They struggled. The difference was that they took hold of God's power, and they were moved by faith. We so often get in this mindset that, oh, well, that's for those people. Well, God actually spoke to those people. God would speak to us if we would just listen. Run the race. What advantage comes from acknowledging God's creation and providence? We learn that we are to be patient in adversity, grateful in the midst of blessing, and to trust our faithful God and Father for the future, assured that no creature shall separate us from his love, since all creatures are so completely in his hands that without his will they cannot even move. We are in God's hands, and he is a loving Father. He wants the best for us, which means he lets us go through hard times, which means that we go through struggles, because those will make us stronger. When you go to the gym and you work out, if you don't push yourself at all, if you only do what you're able to do, you're not going to get stronger. You're not going to build muscle. You're not going to gain endurance. You have to push yourself. Or as Paul says, I don't go beating the air as if beating, or is it just beating the air, right? But I beat my body. I put myself through heck so that I can become stronger and grow and gain more. If everything was easy for you, that wouldn't be good, because you'd never grow. Some of us have met those kids who their parents did everything for them, and now they become adults or get towards adulthood, and they don't know how to do anything. Unfortunately, we've raised a lot of those kids, right, in our culture. Excuse me. You don't want to be that kid. Thank God that he punishes us. Thank God that he puts us into situations where we have the opportunity to claim faith in him, to trust in him that he's doing something beyond what we can understand, and that he's at work in it. Claim that. Grab hold of it with both hands and run the race that has been set before you. Thank you for joining me for Midday Prayer, the bonus content. Thank you. If you're getting something out of this, let me know. Give me some likes or some comments. Let me know how this is being useful. If it's not being useful, tell me how it could be better. Go to our website, faithpresbyteriansc.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Join us this evening for James. Join me tomorrow for more midday prayer. Join us on Sunday for Sunday services. Thank you, and have a very blessed day.